Hello, it's Tom Donald from the London Contemporary School of Piano, and it's my pleasure to present this 5-part piano series in collaboration with Pianist Magazine here at the lovely, beautiful Blutner Piano Centre here in Baker Street, London. It's a real pleasure to present some of these very exciting topics to you, and I know we're going to have a great musical adventure over the coming months. Today we're going to talk about some low-hanging fruit for so many of you pianists at home, practicing, enjoying, struggling sometimes, enjoying, making progress, sometimes making more progress than other times. And what is that low-hanging fruit? This is low-hanging fruit I have seen with so many of my students over the years to really help transform their playing, but not just their playing, their understanding and connection to music. And that low-hanging fruit is chords. Today I'm going to talk about why chords are more important than you might think. Chords and harmony are the foundation, the bedrock, you could say, of Western music, and the piano, this wonderful instrument that has the ability to play so many styles of music. You see, the 21st century piano student, They want to play a little bit of everything. They want to play their favourite classical pieces, maybe a bit of popular music, a bit of film music, a bit of jazz, a bit of blues, a bit of everything. And the wonderful thing about understanding chords and harmony is that language brings it all together. So we're going to start by thinking in chords today. Thinking in chords, what does that mean? Well, the whole history of music can be explained just in harmony and chords, and I don't have time to do that for you today. So we're going to start with a very interesting concept known as the lead sheet. Many of you might have never seen a lead sheet before, and so I'm really excited to tell you what a lead sheet is. All it is a sheet of paper or a musical file of some sort that has no notes or treble clefs and bass clefs on it. It just has chords written on it. And the great thing about lead sheets is it invites a little bit more musical freedom, but also a little bit more musical understanding. And you might think that lead sheets is some maybe new contemporary idea that pop musicians use or jazz musicians use, but it's not a new idea. In fact, lead sheets were the cornerstone to how keyboard players used to play back in the Baroque period. They used to use lead sheets in the form of figured bass. So my first example here of a lead sheet and of a very iconic chord progression is none other than the Pachelbel Canon. But we're going to play it in C, not in D. We're going to do it in its original native key a little bit later today. We're going to play around with this piece in many different ways as a way of understanding chords. So what is our goal exactly today? Well, our goal is not just to understand chords more and build a closer connection to music. That's our broader goal. Our main goal to start with is the ability to play chord progressions fluently, in not necessarily one prescribed way or another way. And by that, I mean we get an access to the DNA of the actual music the composer has arranged with. So let's have a look at this wonderful chord progression. I'm going to play everything in root chords just to really get a sense of the chord numbers within the scale. So I have this. So what am I playing here? Chords 1, chords 5, chord 6, chord 3, chord 4, chord 1, chord 4, chord 5. I can also use inversions. Now, if adding inversions off a lead sheet is a little bit of a step too far, at this point, just think of playing them as root chords and maybe just find the inversions that might feel as natural as possible to you. But we can even just take a step back and have a look at the composition of the chord structure. You see, Western music is built of a very simple and elegant construct, which is chords 1, 4, and 5 being the major chords of the scale, and 2, 3, and 6 being the minor chords of the scale. Obviously, there's also music in minor keys, but we see so much of this interplay and relationship between 1, 4, and 5 and 2, 3, and 6. And having a real understanding of that with our ear and with our muscle memory can really improve our musicianship, because this progression or this interplay of chords has been used throughout musical history. I play this favourite song by the Beatles, Let It Be. It's not identical to Pachelbel's Canon, but you can see it's the same musical language. It's the same interplay of 1, 4, 5 being major, in this case C major, F major, G major, and D minor, E minor, A minor, being chords 2, 3, and 6, and the interplay of major and minor. So I can immediately use that information to do the same thing in different keys. And this is so much more advantageous than just understanding different keys from the viewpoint of only scales. This is a really practical way to advance our musicianship. So if I get that same Pachelbel's progression, let's play it now in D major. What about F major? What about D flat major? A major? And so on. The ability to take one set of musical material based on chords and put that into other keys. And when you're practicing, take your time. Just choose 1 or 2 keys to start with. Work it out with a pen and a pencil if you need to, just to work out the positioning of each chords and what that might be in different keys. But this really builds practical musicianship in so many different ways. So if you do need some help with practice resources, by the way, you can visit our website, contemporaryschoolofpiano.com, and we have a free resources kit which accompany many of the videos that we have across YouTube. But those lead sheets that we have in that resources kit is a really good sounding board of just a bunch of chord progressions that are free from notation, but they're chord progressions in which you can immediately look at the chord sheet and practice or play those progressions. And you've just got a simple goal, be it you use inversions or just root chords to start with, just to be able to play progressions in a musical way, in a way which is coherent. Because what is a chord progression essentially? A chord progression is the musical storyboard that the composer has put together to create a musical narrative. You hear the way the chord 1 melts into the 5, the 6 and the 3 adds the melancholy. Then you've got the chord 4, which is more reassuring, back to the chord 1. I mean, I can't precisely put it in words because this is music, but it has a sound to it, it has a signature to it. And understanding music on that deeper level really connects us to the composers that we're studying. So let's take this up a notch now and look at some other chord progressions that are a little less inside just the key, because composers don't just write functional chord progressions that use chords like 1, 4, and 5, and 2, 3, and 6. They often borrow chords from other scales and other keys, and that makes the music quite exciting. So I've created a lead sheet called Mixture Part 3, and it's in our resources kit on our website. And this leverages a couple of skills known as slash chords. Now, slash chords is a popular music, contemporary music expression for a type of chord progression, and it's very simple. It just means that the left hand is not necessarily playing the same note as the right hand, and it can add really nice dissonance and tension to a chord progression. So here's a bunch of chord progressions that use slash chords, and you can hear how that creates a little bit more tension a little bit more emotion to the chord progression. Here's a few classic ones. This one utilizes a technique known as pedal point, where the left hand just stays, the bass just stays on the same note whilst the chords change in the right hand, and you can hear how effective it is. I'm going to play this in a very simple way so you can really hear it. And again, you don't need to use inversions. Let's try a couple of other combinations. Here's a few more dissonant ones. So chord progressions, you can hear how they really tell a musical story. And I encourage you to experiment with chords yourself. All of those progressions that I put together there were just in groups of 4. And if you just think of 4 chords, any 4 chords, and hear how they string together, hear the possibilities, and maybe you'll get a surprise. One chord to another chord might have a particular sound to it. It might be a sound you find pleasing. It might be a sound you don't find pleasing, and you need to adjust the chord, switch the chord around, make it minor to major, or change the left hand and turn it into a slash chord. But use the piano and chords as a canvas. It's a drawing board, really, and a lot of piano students just don't give themselves permission to try these things and to do these things and play these things. And you're missing out on not only a large amount of musical pleasure, but you're also missing out on some really crucial musical theory through these exploits, through just playing around with the colours of chords and harmony in music. And it doesn't just have to be something the composer themselves enjoy doing and they pass on to us in the shape of a score, which is a completed work. That's what a score is. It is a completed work that has been through all of these processes and drafting of chords and different versions and variations. And then you've got the final finished score. So rather than just playing the final finished score, I invite you to reverse engineer things a little bit and put yourself in the shoes of the composer to get yourself closer to music. And it really helps us look into the composition so much more, rather than looking up to it in some sort of godlike way. I'm going to show you another chord progression that it has a lot of wonderful characteristics to it. And it's often referred to as a circle of fifths progression or a circle of fourths progression. But I don't want to get into the theory semantics. I just want to play around with these chords with you. So we're in the key of C minor. I'm going to play these chords for you. We've got C minor, F minor. Perhaps if you're at the piano right now, you can play along with me. Then we've got B flat major, E flat major, A flat major, F minor, G major, C minor. I'm not going to use any inversions here. Let's let's use some arpeggios like Beethoven was using. And you can see I was adding a simple accompaniment there just by using octaves and fifth intervals there. Those of you who have a little more experience, you can experiment with 10th intervals in the left hand, fifths and tenths, to get a richer sound. So onto the topic of inversions. When you have a lead sheet, you will notice there's no indication of what inversions to use. So how do you know what inversion you should play? Perhaps that's why written scores are so great. But then again, what about jazz musicians or popular musicians? What is it they're doing when they're reading off lead sheets? Because Elton John doesn't read off a score. He scribbles the chords above Bernie Taupin's lyrics. That's how he writes his songs. And a jazz pianist doesn't start a gig one night thinking, oh, I'm going to play Autumn Leaves, but I'm going to start in first inversion. I'm going to start in second inversion. You ask a jazz pianist that, they won't even remember how they started the piece. You see them in a jazz club late at night, like looking like they're in a half coma and just playing these lovely voicings. So how do they know which inversions to pick? Well, that's because they have trained themselves, and this is not perhaps as hard as it might sound. But what they have done, and this is a great contemporary piano skill, they have trained themselves how to play inversions through muscle memory as opposed to intellectual memory. So inversions as a concept might not be too hard to grasp. You've got 3 notes in a chord and therefore you can play it in 3 ways. But how do you get that into your muscle memory so you can make effective inversion decisions as you're reading off a lead sheet? Well, here's a nice little trick that will help you. And this is just one of many relationships you can explore with inversions. If the distance between 2 chords is a perfect 4th interval, let's say I'm going from a C to an F, in this case a C minor to an F minor, I only have to lift the top 2 notes. And I find my F minor. Now I have to lift the top note by a semitone because I'm going to an F minor. I'm not going to an F major. However, if I were going to an F major, I'd be lifting by a full tone. So I have to stay consistent to the notes that or the chord that I'm targeting. But if the distance between the 2 given chords is a perfect 4th, I only have to lift the top 2 notes. And I have the root note in the middle for my chord that I'm targeting, the F minor in this case. So here's a few exercises. Let's play C major to F major. Or what about C minor to F minor? Or what about C major to F minor? Or what about C minor to F major? I'm just playing around with different combinations there. So using that same logic, I can play this circle of fifths progression using this inversion system. Lift the top 2 notes. Then I return to a root chord, lift the top 2 notes. I'm on my E flat major. Root chord. Now in this case I'm targeting an F minor, so I'm only going to lift the top note only, and I'm on an F minor. And then a G major, and then lift the top 2 notes, and I'm back to a C minor. Let's do that again. I'm going to add some arpeggios. If you'd like to dive deeper into the world of inversions and muscle memory, on the London Contemporary School of Piano YouTube channel, we do have some videos on this topic that go into a little bit more depth. But if this is new to you, just get your hands into it first. Let's try this in another key, D minor. So this is a really useful way to get some very good chord progressions into our muscle memory. And if you visit our website, Contemporary School of Piano, we do have a resources kit where you can go over some of these exercises and a whole bunch of other chord progressions that you can practice. And how liberating does it feel to now just have in front of you a bunch of chords, rather than some very exact directions that have to be micromanaged, just having a more broader direction. Well, here are some chords. How can you bring that to life? How can you make musical sense of this? And adding some of this holistic approach to your practice will really make a big difference for so many of you. So I'm really excited to hear about how that goes. Put some comments in the comments section. Let us know what you think. What have you learnt from today? We're going to finish though we're going to return back to our trusty Pachelbel's Canon in D. Which I have just adapted by chords for the piano. It's not really like the string quartet version, obviously. That's not what I'm trying to do right now. We're just going to play around with it a bit more. We're going to add a bit of improvisation to it. This piece is very consistently in D major, so anything I do in the D major scale in the right hand will agree with this piece, let's say. It's pretty diatonic, this piece. So I'm going to play some shells of the chords in the left hand, or just some keynotes from the left hand, the fifth and the octave. You'll notice a lot of the time you need to be careful with chords in the left hand when arranging music on the piano, because often if they get too low, it's a little bit muddy. So just to give us a little bit of rhythm and movement, we're just going to stick to the octave and the fifth, outlining the chord. And that gives us enough information about the chord. And in the right hand, I will mirror this with the chord to start with. Maybe I'll start with a few arpeggiations of the chord, but I'll be a little bit freer, a little less blocky, like that. I'm going to free it up a little bit, like that. We keep it really simple to start with. Just to get a feel of that progression. Now I'm going to break away from chords a little bit in the right hand now and start playing around with the D major scale. Doesn't that just fit like a glove? Let's go to F major. Back to D major. Remember, if you can do one thing in one key, you probably will be able to do it in another key. So always push yourself to try things in different keys, to play the same thing in another key. It's a great way to get to know the piano a little bit better. Well, I hope you've had as much fun as I have today, showing you some of my favourite topics. I could talk about chords all day, and in the interest of time, I won't. My advice is to get those lead sheets and get to the piano and start trying this, playing this yourself on the piano. And just enjoy that process. It's all about that journey, not just the destination. And I'll see you on the next video.